This is one of my most favorite books ever. Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House in the Big Woods. It's really a series of novels, and I remember reading these novels when I was in school, going to the library in New Orleans, a public library, and checking them out one right after the other. And there is a television show, but the novels, they're great stories. So I'm going to read you some of this. Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder, illustrated by Garth Williams. Now, I'm not going to read you this whole book in one setting. I'm going to read you a few chapters at a time. And there are some illustrations, but guess what? This is a novel. So there's not that many illustrations. Little House in the Big Woods. Oh, you know what a chapter book has usually? A table of contents, and this has many chapters. Let me see, how many chapters does this have? 13 chapters. So the picture books, they usually don't have table of contents. But I do want you to notice we still got a cover. We have title page. This is a list of all the Little House books in the series. But yeah, look, here we still have a title page by Laura Ingalls Wilder, illustrated by Garth Williams. There's the publisher, Scholastic. Here's the contents page. Chapter 1, Little House in the Big Woods. Chapter 2, Winter Days and Winter Nights. Chapter 3, The Long Rifle. Chapter 4, Christmas. Chapter 5, Sundays. Chapter 6, Two Big Bears. Chapter 7, The Sugar Snow. Chapter 8, Dance at Grandpa's. Chapter 9, Going to Town. Chapter 10, Summertime. Chapter 11, Harvest. Chapter 12, The Wonderful Machine. Chapter 13, The Deer in the Wood. So here we go, Little House in the Big Woods. Okay, and like I said, there's going to be a few illustrations, but the best thing about a novel, the best thing about any book, is when you use your imagination and you make the illustrations in your head, the characters, what do they look like, what do they sound like, the setting. You see it in your mind's eye, you see it in your imagination. So here we go, Little House in the Big Woods. Once upon a time, 60 years ago, a little girl lived in the big woods of Wisconsin in a little gray house made of logs. The great dark trees of the big woods stood all around the house, and beyond them were other trees, and beyond them were more trees. As far as a man could go to the north in a day, or a week, or a whole month, there was nothing but woods. There were no houses, there were no roads, there were no people. There were only trees and the wild animals who had their homes among them. Wolves lived in the big woods, and bears and huge wild cats. Muskrats and mink and otter lived by the streams. Foxes had dens in the hills, and deer roamed everywhere. To the east of the little log house and to the west there were miles upon miles of trees, and only a few little log houses scattered far apart in the edge of the big woods. So as far as the little girl could see, there was only the one little house where she lived with her father and mother, her sister Mary, and baby sister Carrie. A wagon track ran before the house, turning and twisting out of sight in the woods where the wild animals lived. But the little girl did not know where it went, nor what might be at the end of it. The little girl was named Laura, and she called her father Pa, and her mother Ma. In those days, and in that place, children did not say father and mother, nor mama and papa as they do now. At night, when Laura lay awake in the trundle bed, she listened, and she could not hear anything at all but the sound of the trees whispering together. Sometimes, far away in the night, a wolf howled. Then he came nearer and howled again. It was a scary sound. Laura knew that wolves would eat little girls, but she was safe inside the solid log walls. Her father's gun hung over the door, and good old Jack, the brindle bulldog, lay on guard before it. Her father would say, "Go to sleep, Laura. Jack won't let the wolves in." So Laura snuggled under the covers of the trundle bed close beside Mary and went to sleep. One night her father picked her up out of bed and carried her to the window so that she might see the wolves. There were 2 of them sitting in front of the house. They looked like shaggy dogs. They pointed their noses at the big bright moon and howled. Jack paced up and down before the door, growling. See, look, there's no pictures, but you use your imagination and think about what everything might look like. Growling. The hair stood up along his back, and he showed his sharp, fierce teeth to the wolves. They howled, but they could not get in. The house was a comfortable house. Upstairs there was a large attic, pleasant to play in when the rain drummed on the roof. Downstairs was the small bedroom and the big room. The bedroom had a window that closed with a wooden shutter. The big room had 2 windows with glass in the panes, and it had 2 doors, a front door and a back door. All around the house was a crooked rail fence to keep the bears and the deer away. In the yard in front of the house were 2 beautiful big oak trees. Every morning, as soon as she was awake, Laura ran to look out of the window. And one morning she saw on each of the big trees a dead deer hanging from a branch. Pa had shot the deer the day before, and Laura had been asleep when he brought them home at night and hung them high in the trees so the wolves could not get the meat. That day, Pa and Ma and Laura and Mary had fresh venison for dinner. It was so good that Laura wished they could eat it all, but most of the meat must be salted and smoked and packed away to be eaten in the winter. For winter was coming. The days were shorter and frost crawled up the window panes at night. Soon the snow would come. Then the log house would be almost buried in the snowdrifts, and the lakes and the streams would freeze. In the bitter cold weather, Pa could not be sure of finding any wild game to shoot for meat. The bears would be hidden away in their dens where they slept soundly all winter long. The squirrels would be curled in their nests in hollow trees with their furry tails wrapped snugly around their noses. The deer and the rabbits would be shy and swift. Even if Pa could get a deer, it would be poor and thin, not fat and plump as deer are in the fall. Pa might hunt alone all day in the bitter cold in the big woods covered with snow and come home at night with nothing for Ma and Mary and Laura to eat. So as much food as possible must be stored away in the little house before winter came. Pa skinned the deer carefully and salted and stretched the hides, for he would make soft leather of them. Then he cut up the meat and sprinkled salt over the pieces as he laid them on a board. Standing on end in the yard was a tall length cut from the trunk of a big hollow tree. Pa had driven nails inside as far as he could reach from each end. Then he stood it up, put a little roof over the top, and cut a little door on one side, the bottom. On the piece that he cut out, he fastened leather hinges. Then he fitted it into place, and that was the little door with the bark still on it. After the deer meat had been salted several days, Pa cut a hole near the end of each piece and put a string through it. Laura watched him do this, and then she watched him hang the meat on the nails in the hollow log. He reached up through the little door and hung meat on the nails as far up as he could reach. Then he put a ladder against the log, climbed up to the top, moved the roof to one side and reached down. He moved the roof to one side and he reached down inside to hang meat on those nails. Then Papa put the roof back again, climbed down the ladder, and said to Laura, "Run over to the chopping block and fetch me some of those green hickory chips, new clean white ones." So Laura ran to the block where Pa chopped wood and filled her apron with the fresh, sweet-smelling chips. Just inside the little door in the hollow log, Pa built a fire of tiny bits of bark and moss, and he laid some of the chips on it very carefully. Instead of burning quickly, the green chips smoldered and filled the hollow log with thick, choking smoke. Pa shut the door, and a little smoke squeezed through the crack around it, and a little smoke came out through the roof, but most of it was shut in with the meat. "There's nothing better than good hickory smoke," Pa said. "This will make good venison that will keep anywhere, in any weather." Then he took his gun, and slinging his axe on his shoulder, he went away to the clearing to cut down some more trees. Laura and Ma watched the fire for several days. When smoke stopped coming through the cracks, Laura would bring more hickory chips, and Ma would put them on the fire. All right, wait, I do want to show you. Look, not many illustrations, but this is what he built. And see, there's the little door with the leather hinges. This is the tree, there's the little roof on top. So this is what people back then would do to preserve meat. They didn't have, they had stores, but it wasn't like Rouse's or Trader Joe's or Dornack's or anything like that. You hunted and you cleaned and you cooked your own meat. And then look over here. That's Laura going to the wood pile, getting some chips. So Ma would put them on the fire under the meat. All the time there was a little smell of smoke in the yard, and when the door was opened, a thick, smoky, meaty smell came out. At last Pa said the venison had smoked long enough. Then they let the fire go out, and Pa took all the strips and pieces of meat out of the hollow tree. Ma wrapped each piece neatly in paper and hung them in the attic where they would keep safe and dry. One morning, Pa went away before daylight with the horses and wagon, and that night he came home with a wagon load of fish. The big wagon box was piled full, and some of the fish were as big as Laura. Pa had gone to Lake Pepin and caught them all with a net. No pictures, but I'm reading. Ma cut large slices of flaky white fish, without one bone, for Laura and Mary. They all feasted on the good fresh fish. All they did not eat fresh was salted down in barrels for the winter. Pa owned a pig. It ran wild in the big woods, living on acorns and nuts and roots. Now he caught it and put it in a pen made of logs to fatten. He would butcher it as soon as the weather was cold enough to keep the pork frozen. Once in the middle of the night, Laura woke up and heard the pig squealing. Pa jumped out of bed, snatched his gun from the wall, and ran outside. Then Laura heard the gun go off. Once, twice. When Pa came back, he told what had happened. He had seen a big black bear standing beside the pig pen. The bear was reaching into the pen to grab the pig, and the pig was running and squealing. Pa saw this in the starlight, and he fired quickly, but the light was dim, and in his haste he missed the bear. The bear ran away into the woods, not hurt at all. Laura was sorry Pa did not get the bear. She liked bear meat so much. Pa was sorry too, but he said, "Anyway, I saved the bacon." The garden beside the little house had been growing all summer. It was so near the house that the deer did not jump the fence and eat the vegetables in the daytime, and at night Jack kept them away. Sometimes in the morning there were little hoof prints among the carrots and the cabbages. But Jack's tracks were there too, and the deer had jumped right out again. Now the potatoes and carrots and beets and turnips and cabbages were gathered and stored in the cellar, for freezing nights had come. Onions were made into long ropes braided together by their tops, and then were hung in the attic besides wreaths of red peppers strung on threads. The pumpkins and the squashes were piled in orange and yellow and green heaps in the attic's corners. The barrels of salted fish were in the pantry, and yellow cheeses were stacked on the pantry shelves. Then one day Uncle Henry came riding out of the big woods. He had come to help Pa butcher. Ma's big butcher knife was already sharpened, and Uncle Henry had brought Aunt Polly's butcher knife. All right, first graders, I'm gonna stop right here. Believe it or not, I'm on page 13. I'm gonna use a bookmark. Right now I'm using my finger. It's a very long book, but I'm gonna read a little bit at a time. I'm also gonna continue to read the storybooks. I love those. Those are funny, and those are picture books, but I do wanna read you some novels in little increments. I hope everybody's doing well. My kids are still driving me crazy. They just want to eat. Nobody wants to do their schoolwork. I don't know if you guys want to do your schoolwork. And then they get bored, and then they're not bored, and then they want to talk to their friends on the telephone or FaceTime or, you know, something. Not, I don't know, Zoom. I think they're doing that for school. Who knows? I do miss you guys. And I hope that you're going inside and outside, whatever your parents let you do. And watch some movies or funny videos, read some books, draw, try new things, try something new every day. Be sure to give your moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas hugs and kisses. And I guess lots of teacher love. I will for sure keep thinking of you. Lots and lots of teacher love. Take care. Bye.